I'm Kate Masters for the Frederick News Post, and this is Beyond the Ballot, a series of in-depth interviews with Frederick County's most recently elected officials. And I am here today with Michael Blue, who was just elected to his first term as District 5 Councilman. How are you today, Michael?
I'm fine, thanks, Kate.
Great. Well, thank you so much for coming in. I appreciate it.
I was happy to come in.
And just to start off, I wanted to know if you could tell me a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm 59 years old. I was born in Ann Arbor, Michigan. Moved here when my dad was hired to work at East Alco Aluminum in Frederick. So I've been here for almost 50 years.
Wow.
So graduated from Frederick High School, went to Frederick Community College, graduated from Frederick Community College, went on to Shepherd. From there, I went and started getting involved with owning, my own business, and that's what I do now. I own and operate Brownie's Auto Repair in Walkersville. Had that for over 30 years now. Married, my wife Jeannie O'Connell. We have 3 children. Our oldest is married and has 3 children, so we have 3 grandchildren.
Wow.
So Frederick's home for me.
Okay.
For almost 50 years.
Wow. And I know you own Brownie's. And I think I read in an earlier story that you weren't always a car guy.
No, I wanted to actually go into law. I wanted to be a lawyer.
Wow, okay.
And then I got married out of college and then went into a family-run business, which were service stations, gasoline, and then got into owning just automotive repair businesses and been doing that ever since. And I love it, but it's not what I wanted to do.
Oh, okay. So are there any plans to change careers, or are you set now?
No, I think I'm pretty set now.
Okay.
Yeah, the only career change would be entering into the political arena.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I also read that you work like 60 hours a week just to keep everything running at the shop.
Yep. And my son Matthew has come on, and he's going to be taking over the day-to-day operations. So it's going to allow me more time to do, the service to the community and to our county. So, he and I are a partnership, and that's the way it hopefully will work out for everybody.
Yeah, and you entered politics, officially just recently as a candidate. So what made you want to become a local politician? I
really was interested in more local politics, like Walkersville, to run for commissioner in Walkersville. As I've owned and operated a business in Walkersville for over 30 years. But since my primary residence is not in Walkersville, I'm ineligible, even though I own property there. So the more that I talked with our sheriff, Chuck Jenkins, the more we discussed maybe going into being a county commissioner. This was 5 or 6 years ago. And then when the county changed to charter, then we thought, I actually thought, well, maybe I'll run in the district that I live in, which happens to be the district that Brownie's is in, my business. So that was a good fit for me. So I decided to try my hand in county government.
Okay. And so you represent District 5, and Brownie's is in Walkersville. And where do you live then? Well,
I live in Frederick. It's a Frederick address, but it's right at the very lower part of District 5. It's right off of Walter Martz Road. So everything behind me in my backyard, I like to say, is District 5. So everything north of where I live. I'm at the very, very bottom of District 5. Okay. I'm from here to the cars out there from the city limits of Frederick, which is District 3 or 4, I forget.
Yeah. And what were the issues that made you want to join politics?
There really weren't any specific issues. It was just the same issues that everybody talks about that has to do with quality of life, which is development, which are roads, which public safety. I serve on the Citizens Advisory Committee for the Sheriff's Department, and I have for over 12 years, and I'm involved with law enforcement and with the Sheriff's Department at a pretty extensive level. And so those issues were pretty important to me. Yeah, obviously roads, I remember driving around here, and when I graduated Frederick High School in 1978, and you didn't have anywhere near the problems to get from one side of Frederick to the other. I understand there's growing pains and you're going to have these issues, but they just need to be managed, I think, a little bit more appropriately.
Okay. And I know that you were one of many in the county who has criticized the long-term agreements that the Board of Commissioners, before the charter government started, entered into with developers.
Well, I didn't criticize them. I just didn't understand whether they were the best thing for Frederick County. These developers' rights and responsibility agreements, I would get comments from ex-commissioners or even the past council members that all of them were good for Frederick County. Some of them were good. None of them were good. So I wanted to look into those and see if there was a proper way to use them. Maybe there's not. I don't know. And that's what I'm in the process of trying to learn, as we go forward. I don't know that our overcrowded roads and schools and overdevelopment has to do with what was approved 5, 7, 8 years ago. I'm sure that it had, quite an impact, but I just want to see if we can learn from the past. If those agreements are really not what's best for not only the developer, but for Frederick County, then we should probably not use them.
Okay.
So.
And I know, obviously congestion has been a concern of yours. So do you see ways that the council can help mitigate that? Well,
just appropriately approving, mixed-use developments. We really need to have more commercial development. So bring more jobs here, allow more of our citizens to live where they work instead of commuting down the road. And just, we're not a bedroom community. We were a long time ago, and we still are to a certain extent, but we really just need to try to tighten things up a little bit and have the mixed-use residential, commercial, industrial, all kind of fit. And if it's done right, even a county as prosperous as Frederick County can make it work. You really have, it's a good problem to have when your roads are congested, because it is a sign that things are very prosperous and the economy is good. So, but you still have to be able to get from one place to the other without just sitting in gridlock.
Yeah, and backing up a little bit, you specifically represent District 5, and are their representative on the council. So what do you see as some of the major issues or needs for your district?
District 5, Route 15 is the most important, and I've said that for months because it completely, intersects District 5, as it goes through Frederick also. But it's a dangerous road, and it needs to be addressed. The state of Maryland is starting to do things to help with that, those at-grade intersections. There's not a whole lot of development planned in District 5, so I think we really need to expand, the additional transit services up further north into Thurmont and Emmitsburg. That would be a good thing to do. And we really just want to be able to provide the services and keep the taxes, at or below where they are right now.
Mm-hmm. And when you talk about transit, do you see more regular bus service into the area?
I think more bus service would be the most economical way to look at it. And some of the citizens that I've talked to over the last 6 months have asked about that, whether that can happen. And I'm sure that it's something that's looked into, especially because we have, Thurmont, Emmitsburg, Myersville, Walkersville already is part of the bus service. And we have Woodsboro. So there's some pretty decent sized municipalities that need to be served. And I think that, some form of mass transit would help.
Okay. And in terms of congestion on the roads, you support the governor's plan to widen I-270 and make improvements on 15?
I support it as one of the options. I think it needs to be combined with additional mass transit, additional services, whether it's MARC train or Amtrak. It's very expensive to bring Amtrak anywhere, so I don't know when that'll ever happen for Frederick County. But toll roads, expanding 270, telecommuting, all these things have to work together. And I don't support Governor Hogan's widening of it as the only fix. It's not, that won't fix it, just putting more people on the roads.
Okay.
So.
And when it comes to development and congestion, are there any specific things that you think the council can address or will come up during your term?
Nothing specifically at this point. I know that there will be issues that we'll address that have to do with zoning or developments and school construction. That's gonna be part of it. But as far as the overcrowding, we're looking at the intersection there of Meadow Road, which is going to be huge for the eastern part of Frederick. And that should have been done 5, 6, 7 years ago. And we can go back and say 15 should have been addressed 10, 15 years ago, and it should have. So there's no benefit to live in the past. We really need to go forward and try to work with our partners in Annapolis, with the state, and see what they can do to help. I don't know what the answer is for 15. I know it's in the planning stages, but just widening it is not the answer, entirely.
Mm-hmm. And when it comes to, another thing that I think, is sort of a ghost from the past that a lot of council members want to address now are things like mitigation and school construction fees. And I've spoken with members of the council who believe that the entire schedule should be raised. And do you have feelings on what developers in Frederick County should be responsible for? Well,
again, we're playing catch up from what happened 5, 6, 8 years ago. And I don't think it's fair to have developers now make up what wasn't accounted for or wasn't done properly in the past. So there has to be a graduation of these fees, whether they're mitigation fees, payments in lieu of, construction fee. I mean, obviously we're still going to use the APFO to allow developments to start, depending on whether they pass or not and whether they can pay, fees in lieu of. But there has to be a fairness, and you can't just, whether we look at constructions of school cost, which I agree with Council Member Jerry Donald, no one wants to build cheap schools. We want to build schools that are going to last for 40, 50, 60 years. But there has to be some better management on the cost of building schools. And I know that Frederick County has a model for an elementary school and a middle school and a high school. And if we can kind of stay more consistent and maybe bring the cost under control, then we may not have to ask for as much from the building side of the industry. I think it's a combination of both.
And how can you control costs when it comes to building schools?
I think if you replicate a model instead of going completely from scratch, that there has to be some cost savings depending on the cost of acquiring the land and the site work and all that. But the school itself, it's like, these fast food restaurants go out and they build, McDonald's builds a new store and it's torn down, completely leveled and built up. Now, obviously they know what they're doing because they build the same model. If you would have something similar, which I know it doesn't work exactly like that, but with an elementary school, you'd have the same elementary school. It'll have different colors and different names and a little bit of aesthetics differences, but other than that, it's the same model. It's the same building built just somewhere else and the same middle school. And you can change a couple things, but it's not so custom like Frederick High School was.
Okay. I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
And obviously, a school construction fee bill actually just recently passed before the start of the second council. Mm-hmm. And if legislation like that was to emerge again in your term, if the schedule was to be raised or more fees were introduced, would you support those measures?
I would have to look at what the raises would be to see if they would make any sense and whether it was fair for all parties involved. So I couldn't say yes or no right now. But, I understand that our county executive wanted them to be a lot higher. I know the ex-president Otis wanted them to find some kind of a compromise, and he considers what was passed a compromise, and it probably was. Whether it's enough or not, I'm not really sure yet.
Okay. And I also wanted to bring up, I was reading some of your, the materials you distributed during your campaign, and I know that for you, public safety is a big issue. And I was wondering if you could explain more about what you mean by that.
Well, there's basic services that a county government provides, mm-hmm. and public safety is one of the top 3. So if the citizens of our county, can't be protected and shouldn't feel safe in their homes, then our sheriff and our, even the city of Frederick, the police, but they need to provide, the services and not just patrol, but, everything related to investigations, to, being proactive. Our sheriff, Chuck Jenkins, has done a phenomenal job. I support him wholeheartedly. I support our county being involved with the 287G program, the housing program. I just think that it provides, incentives for people to look elsewhere than Frederick County, whether they're gang related or, any other kind of criminal element, that they're just not welcome. And, it's not a violation of someone's private rights. I mean, you have to actually be arrested and gone into the detention center before any of those federal ICE programs are even, brought into play.
Mm-hmm. And I actually wanted to talk about that because I know that you have served as the president of the Sheriffs and Citizens Advisory Committee. Mm-hmm. And how many years have you done that now?
5, I think.
Okay.
Been on the committee since the sheriff was elected, 12, going on 13 years now. Mm-hmm. And I think it's been about 5 years, but I'm going to be stepping down as president. I won't be able to do it with the time demands of the county council, especially being part of leadership as the vice president. So I'm going to try to stay a member, but as far as president, that will end tonight.
Okay.
Yep.
Wow.
Our meeting's tonight.
Okay. And what made you want to join that committee?
I was asked by the sheriff.
Mm-hmm.
You want to have a broad kind of a section of representation from the county, and I was a business owner and lived in Frederick, but had a business in Walkersville, so there wasn't as much representation north, and so, but I was asked and was happy to serve.
Yeah. And do you and Sheriff Jenkins know each other personally?
Yes, I've known Sheriff Jenkins. He graduated a couple years ahead of me in Frederick High, so I've known him for, since I was in high school. We played baseball together, so I've known him for a long time. He's a personal friend. Okay.
Yeah. And you said that you do support the 287G program and Frederick's involvement in it?
Yes.
Okay. And do you think that, because I think that, to play devil's advocate, a lot of people worry that sometimes, not only are undocumented immigrants detained for smaller offenses and then deported even if, they're contributing citizens, but then it also leads to fear among the community of people who live here in Frederick.
That's true, and that was one of the big reasons that the sheriff was has to have these meetings annually to try to explain to the citizens that there's no data that proves that, the migrant community, whether you're illegal immigrants or whether you're just, the immigrant community in itself, will not actually, for fear of reprisal or for fear of turning themselves in or something, will not report crimes. That's just not true. You really, if you're not going to take this criminal element, whether they're gang related or not, mm-hmm. off of the streets, that's got to be better than letting them go back to their communities and they're going to reoffend. And then if ICE or the federal agency has to go find them because there's a detainer for them, so they're looking for them, it's a lot better for ICE and for Frederick County to actually take care of them in the detention center environment if they happen to be caught for, and it's not normal. If you're pulled over for a tag light being out, or if you're pulled over even for speeding, and you have the proper license, identification, and the registration in the car, nobody takes you in. Mm-hmm. There's no profiling, and that's a fallacy that people are they're portraying that that's what happens. That's not the program. If you don't have a valid driver's license, or the vehicle's registered stolen, or the tags are no good, if you are then arrested and taken to the detention center, that's when the process starts. So the sheriff's department or any other agency, they're not out there driving around looking for vehicles to pull you over for a misdemeanor and then, we got you because you're in the country illegally. Even though you are in the country illegally is against the law, I don't support profiling. I don't support the sheriff's department doing anything but their job. And then if you happen to be incarcerated and you're run through that process, then that's when the federal and ICE systems take over.
Okay. And where do you source the data that the immigrant community doesn't feel fear of reprisal from 287G? Because I'm not aware of any studies.
ICE was did a presentation for us, it was like a year or two ago, because, this is a very contentious issue.
Right.
The sheriff gets pushed back a lot, and not just from organizations like Casa de Maryland, but other organizations that really are trying to take care of citizens' rights. Whether you're an illegal citizen or not, citizens that are in this country do have rights. So, we had a presentation that says it's just not proven, that the stats just don't prove out. And I don't know where he got the data. But
it was coming from ICE itself.
ICE.
Okay,
Yes.
okay. And I know, one thing that's interesting to me is that Sheriff Jenkins is obviously, he's a pretty politically outspoken guy. I know that he is a strong Trump supporter and he supports pretty conservative policies. And philosophically, would you say that you're in agreement with Sheriff Jenkins about?
Yeah, I would say so.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm a very conservative, about Trump, who knows? I mean, I like what he's doing, but I don't like how he's doing it. So that's pretty much that's pretty much it in a nutshell.
And it was interesting because you said that even some of those policies, especially when it comes to immigration, were hard to reconcile with your Christianity and your personal.
Well, it's because being a Catholic, I believe that we need to take care of the people that can't take care of themselves. Now, I still believe in a lawful, United States. I believe in the Constitution. I believe if you want to come into this country, you should come into it the right way. You should do what needs to be done. My great-grandparents came from Czechoslovakia. They immigrated, and my mom's mother, her last name, her maiden name's Kowalik. So we grew up, hearing all about my great-grandparents coming to this country, and we are the greatest nation in the world. I can't fault anybody for wanting to come here. I can't. I mean, it is the greatest place to live in the world. So, but we have to obey our laws, and we have to also, the problem that I have is we have to take care of people. We have to take care of people that are maybe stuck in the middle. Where did their parents bring them and they were born here? Well, then what happens to them? We can't just send them back home. I mean, we have to find a way to take care of these individuals that are stuck in the middle, so to speak. So that's where I really have a conflict, is how, I don't want to just put them all on, a boat and send them home. That's not morally what you should do, and that's just not the way that I was raised, and that's just not what I believe.
Okay. And switching a little bit to another sort of focus point in terms of public safety, I know that you've questioned some of the new fire and rescue stations that have been being built across the county. I think that I saw that you had some questions about those.
Well, I don't know that I questioned them. I mean, I think Middletown's new firehouse is beautiful. The only thing someone might have asked me is whether it needed to be, as elaborate as what it is. And I don't know. I've only seen it once. I didn't make the ground breaking ceremony. But I never really questioned too much about the stations. I'd like to see them, in the right spots, which I think, that the fire rescue, and I think they've done a good job where they're placing them. So, but, again, I'm more conservative. I'd rather find a way to build something less expensively, but still provide the benefits that the community needs, whether it's in Middletown or Jefferson or Urbana, anywhere in Frederick County. If a new fire rescue station needs built, well, that's great. If Frederick County funds are help building it, well, then, I'm always looking for ways to do it less expensively.
Oh, okay, so that's all construction.
That's
Schools.
Pretty much, let's find a really good model. Let's find a quality model. Let's find one that's a little bit more affordable, economical, and then, go forward and provide them as they're needed.
Okay. And overall, looking forward, what do you think are some of the biggest issues or pieces of legislation the council is going to face first?
Livable Frederick. That's going to be in the next few months, probably by next spring. That's a big document that haven't even understood all of it yet. I've read it through almost twice, and it's a hard read. And we'll have the Monocacy Scenic River plan. That'll be coming out of the county the Planning Commission, I believe, and we'll be looking at that. And then obviously the budget. The budget's coming up real soon. So those are probably the top three.
Okay. And I wanted to ask about the Monocacy Scenic River Plan because I know that during the campaign you signed a pledge that was distributed by landowners, and the pledge dealt with things like promising not to, pass regulations on buffers, eminent domain, reforestation, things like that. And that's a pretty big promise. And I was wondering, what made you sign that pledge?
Well, it was a pretty big promise, but when you look at it, it really is not. It really is just common sense. The last time that the county, I don't even know a time that the county has done anything in the eminent domain, especially related to a waterway. So I didn't think any of it was even going to be possible to occur. So it wasn't that hard for me. It wasn't political. I mean, even though it looked like it was based on party lines for who signed it and who didn't. I agreed with a couple of the candidates' reasons for not, because things can change so much that, and it's true, situations and circumstances could change where that particular pledge would have no bearing at all. So it really wasn't that big of a deal for me. I just thought it was something that I supported. I will do my best, to make sure that property rights along the river or along the tributaries or even the whole watershed. So it's not just property that abuts the river, that citizens' rights are protected. And then at the same time, we need to protect that, the scenic river, that the water quality has to be protected.
Right. And do you think the document, the plan as it stands now, does have any threats or infringements on property owner rights?
I haven't read the new one that was just released that the Planning Commission, I believe, has, so I haven't seen it, but I've been told that it addresses most, if not all, of the property rights concerns. Now, I've also been told that it doesn't go far enough to protect the water quality, so we're going to get a good look at it and then as a council decide, whether we want to amend it again, whether we're going to send it back to the Monocacy, the council to rewrite it. Carroll County, their commissioners passed it. It definitely has to be a joint plan with Frederick and Carroll. I think state law mandates that anyway. So, and I think that's what it should be. And I don't see any reason why we can't pass a plan that adequately, addresses the water quality as well as property rights.
Yeah, and it's become such a contentious divide. And do you think overall that the environmental concerns are more important or that the property owner concerns are more?
No, I think they're both as important.
No, you think
so? I do. And I think it got blown out of proportion and not unfairly. I think when they put, these big, when the state of Maryland released these, forget what they were called, the preservation areas, or these big lines and these areas that went through individuals' homes that were already there existing, it really got a lot of people interested and upset about the infringement on the property rights, and rightly so. And then, more people were interested in what was going on, and then that's how I think it got to be kind of a political football, if you will. But it's, it's valid. There's valid concerns on both sides. And I think both of them can be addressed. And I think both of them can be satisfied to where both sides are, they're not going to be 100% satisfied, but it should be pretty close and provide both the, water quality issue and the property rights issue.
And I was going to ask if you thought you would approve the plan as it stands now in its current state.
I'd have to read it first.
Okay.
So I'd have to see it.
Sure. And personally, is there any legislation or any issues that you would really like to tackle in your first term?
No, there's not. Nothing comes to mind. I mean, we're going to be looking at different amendments to legislation, and citizens call us and email us all the time about, hey, what can we do about this or that? But nothing specific as of right now.
Okay. And I know, like you mentioned, you were actually elected vice president of the council.
Yes.
And how did that feel in your first term?
Well, I mean, I thought it showed, how this council plans on governing. and that's in a bipartisan way. And I've had constituents come up to me and even customers of mine say, well, I'm glad you ran, thank you so much, but you're not going to get anything done because you're in the minority. Democrats are 4 on the council, you Republicans are 3, so thank you so much, and I don't agree with that. They're writing this council off as going to be so divided along party lines, and that's not the way not only the way it shouldn't be, but I don't see that happening. I've talked with Councilman Donald and Councilman Hagan and Jessica Fitzwater, and especially MC. MC's a very competent president of the council. She did a great job as vice president last term. I think she's got a level head. I think she's very reasonable. And, we have bipartisan leadership. So, and I think that's going to, I think it's going to show in the next few months what direction the council is going to take. And I think we're going to do what's best for Frederick County and not what's best for our party. Sure, we're going to look at things differently. I want a lot of things that everybody else does, but you have to be able to afford it. You have to be able to pay for it. So I want smaller government. I want, but that's just the way I was raised. That's just who I am. That's my belief system. That's not my political beliefs. So I think it's going to be a very productive council, and I'm looking forward to it. And if I happen to be able to contribute in a small way in the leadership side of it, then that's great. I'm happy to try to help the council any way I can.
And you've been a business owner for years, but this is your real first foray into elected politics.
Yes.
And how has the learning curve been?
I'm still in that curve. It's different. MC Keegan Ayer said last week, I think, when we had our elections, that Mike Blue was a freshman, or he has a blank slate, or so there's really no baggage. I don't have a political career. I don't have a voting record. I have nothing to really for people to go back and say, hey, why did you do that? So in that regard, I'm really looking to learn from, past council members. I have friends that, I've been trying to, get as much information from, and then I'm also learning from, the current council members, and they've all been very helpful. And, it's all about values. It's about, what you believe and what you don't believe, and it's what's right. And it's not about, just being a conservative or just being a liberal. I mean, it's about what's right for Frederick County.
Right. Well, Michael, I want to give everyone the chance to get to know you a little bit more as a person, too.
Okay.
And you talked about your family a little bit in the beginning, but could you tell me more about them? Like, you have 3 grandchildren,
yes.
You said. Okay.
Yep. Our oldest son, Joseph, is married to Elizabeth.
Okay.
Joseph O'Connell. They live in Frederick, and they have 3 children. We have 7-year-old Kaylin, 5-year-old Evelyn, and then the 3-year-old Tegan.
Oh boy.
So a girl, boy.
Okay.
And they're wonderful. They are just great. And we have second eldest son, Matthew, who I mentioned is running the Brownie's Auto Repair with me. He lives in Frederick. He's not married. He's engaged to his fiancée, Amelia. And then our youngest daughter, Katie, she's out of medical school. She's a second-year resident down in Virginia at Marshall University Hospital in Huntington.
Okay.
So she's real busy, so we don't get to see her much.
Okay.
So, and that's it. I'm one of 6. My mom's still living. My father and my older brother passed away. My older brother, Tommy, I'm the second eldest.
Okay.
And then I have a brother, David, who lives in Pittsburgh, a brother, Danny, who's in Maryland, my sister, Marianne, who lives here in Frederick, and my sister, Kathy, who lives here in Frederick.
Oh, okay.
Big family.
Yeah, that is a big family. Did you fight a lot growing up?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The boys did.
Okay.
Because there were 4 boys first and then the 2 girls, so we didn't really mess with them.
Okay. And how long have you been married?
15, going on 16 years.
Wow. Okay.
Yep.
How did you and your wife meet?
Friend I was closer friends with my wife's younger sister, and so I knew the O'Connell family. I mean, they've been in Frederick since 1967, and she's one of 9. Another big Catholic family. Yeah. So I knew about Jeannie, and just was interested in what she was doing. And next thing you know, we started dating, and then we got married, and we're still happily ever after so far.
Well, very nice. And I know, so you didn't immediately, or you got into owning repair shops through your father-in-law.
My ex-father-in-law.
Father-in-law at the time.
My first marriage, which I was married 16 years. My first marriage. So yeah, I got right out of college and started managing businesses, which were service stations, and then eventually owning, our own, and then been self-employed probably 36 years now.
Okay, wow. And over the years, have you learned a lot about repairing cars?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And I wanted to ask, do you have any, what's the craziest repair you've ever had to do at the shop?
Some of the crazy ones are vehicles towed in for no starts, and we get them in and we find out that some rodent has chewed through wiring harnesses or even through, they're towed in for fuel leaks, or the vehicle doesn't start but they smell gas, and mice or squirrels have chewed through the fuel lines, because a lot of the material used has a lot of kind of vegetable oil in it. So the squirrels and mice and rats love it. They start chewing on it.
Wow.
They cause all kinds of problems, whether they're vapor problems in the fuel tank system, whether it's fuel pressure, or whether it's a wiring harness. It doesn't matter. You should see the damage. And the insurance companies get involved because it's very expensive to fix.
Wow, I had no idea that you would see that.
That's the crazy stuff. The regular stuff, we get all kinds of repairs.
Yeah.
From just minor stuff to major work. And that's just what you're going to have with an automobile.
Yeah.
So if you're going to drive it, it's going to need work.
Yeah. And you're a very long-time Frederick County resident. So do you have a favorite place in Frederick County?
Place as in what? A place to go?
Yeah,
a place to go. Place to...
Well, I think in general, I know that some people love, for example, they love hiking, on Gambrel Mountain.
I like the Overlook.
Okay.
Yeah, I like that. I love Gettysburg. We have so much history around us in Frederick. Not only here in Frederick County with, our proximity to the battlefields, but it's just driving around the roads in Frederick County. Even my district, District 5, I still say is the most beautiful district in Frederick.
Yeah.
It's all northern Frederick County. And so, but no particular one place.
Okay. And are you a history buff?
No, my dad was big and he really was involved with all the history and the Antietam battlefield and the Gettysburg battle. I mean, just he was into it. I dabble in it. That's it.
Okay. And what about pets? Are you a dog person or a cat person?
Dog person.
Okay. Do you have any pets or a dog?
2 dogs.
Really? What are their names?
Maggie. She's a yellow lab. She's 13, almost 14.
Wow.
Poor girl. And then we rescued Chance, who is a treeing walker coonhound.
Wow, a treeing walker?
Treeing walker coonhound.
Okay.
He's never treed anything that I've seen, but he sniffs and his nose is to the ground and he howls in the morning. Our neighbors probably love it at 6:30 in the morning when we let him out and it's still dark and he's out there. But yeah, we've had dogs for a number of years. We've had some cats. I like all animals.
Okay.
But if I had to pick one of the 2, it would be dogs.
Okay. And a tree, so does that mean he chases things up trees?
Supposed to, but this one hasn't figured that out.
So he's not good at his job.
He's not, no.
Okay.
That's his name. That's his breed. But he doesn't do that. We rescued him from a place down on the Eastern Shore, down I think in Talbot County, where he came from a very abusive home.
Oh.
So he's just so scared.
Yeah.
We've had him for over 3 years, and he's just now starting to get. He never would even go around the grandkids.
Oh, okay.
He would just run, go upstairs, hide. Now he wants to be petted, and so he's really come a long way.
Okay. And what about pie or cake? Where do you stand on the pie-cake divide?
I'd have to say cake.
You're the first cake I've gotten. Okay. And what's your favorite kind of cake?
Carrot.
Carrot cake? Okay. That's controversial. I know a lot of people who don't like carrot cake.
I love pies, but if I had to pick, it's cake.
Okay.
And it's carrot cake. And my sister, Kathy, makes the best.
Really?
I have her recipe. I made it, and it turned out pretty good.
Okay.
But it's the best.
Okay. Will you give me the recipe
I will.
after the interview? Okay, good. And then if you could have dinner with 3 people, living or dead, who would you want to have dinner with?
I would like to have had dinner with President H.W. Bush, who just passed away. That would have been interesting. I really, I thought he was quite a classy person. And then if I could pick 2 other people, I would be probably my father, who passed away, and that's been almost 6 years ago, and my older brother, Tommy, who passed away almost 10 years ago.
Oh.
So that's who I would like to have dinner with.
Do you think that they would have fun talking to George H.W. Bush?
Yep. I think we would all get along just fine.
Okay. And for you, do you have a favorite book that you've read?
Nope, I don't read many books.
Okay.
Nope, I normally read your newspaper.
Okay.
Every day. I'm a subscription holder. And I read some magazines and stuff, and then I try to, stay up with current events and stuff, but I'm not a big reader. My wife reads a lot, and she can't believe I don't sit down and read when she's reading, but she reads a lot of medical stuff and stuff like that. So.
Does she work in the medical field?
Yeah, she's a doctor.
Okay, wow. And what about TV? Do you have any TV series you like?
No, I don't. I mean, TV is more sports related. I like some of the HGTV ones, the fixer-upper ones. Those are kind of interesting because I like to do that, even though I don't have time to do it, but I'd like to be able to do some of that stuff and remodel.
Yeah.
Some of the Netflix shows and stuff like that. Outlander, we've been watching that.
Really?
I like that.
Okay.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
But no, and we just got done watching this Australian one. Something about home. I forget the name of it, but no, not so much.
Okay. And this might be hard too, but do you have 3 favorite movies? Or if you had to watch 3 movies, take 3 movies to a desert island, what movies?
Well, this time of year, I watch every Christmas season, It's a Wonderful Life, and that is one of my favorite movies anyway. Then if I had to pick, I haven't been to the movies to actually go to a movie theater in a while, but 2 of my favorite ones would be Groundhog Day and Green Mile.
Okay, those are good choices.
I like those.
Okay.
Yep.
And since it's getting close to Christmas, do you have a favorite Christmas carol or Christmas song?
I like Silent Night.
Silent Night?
Yep.
Okay. And do you and your family do any traditions on Christmas?
Christmas Eve, we go to Mass, and then we'll go over to my sister's house, and we have special dips and dishes that are prepared. So we do that every Christmas Eve. And then other than that, there's really, we have what they call the Blue Christmas, which is just my side of the family. And that's normally a week or 2 before. That's coming up next week, actually, next Saturday.
Okay.
Where we do a nice big dinner, and because we don't exchange presents anymore.
Oh, yeah.
Big families, we stopped that.
Yeah.
And none of us need anything. I mean, you're better off just getting together and enjoying your family together and your time together, as opposed to unwrapping a pair of socks or stuff you don't need.
Right. And you mentioned that you do watch some sports, but do you have any other major hobbies outside work and now politics?
Well, if I did, they're not going to be around much because I don't have much time. But I was a big golfer.
Oh, okay.
Loved to play golf. Still do, but I just don't have time.
Okay. Were you a good golfer?
I was, but that was 10, 15 years ago.
Okay.
I was a 4 handicap.
Okay. I have no idea what that means, but
well, the lower the number, the better.
Okay.
So 0 is a scratch golfer, and then it goes up from there. So if you can be in the single digits, that's not too bad for, playing once or twice a week.
Okay. And what about your alcoholic drink of choice?
I I would have to say red wine.
Red wine. Oh, do you have a favorite?
Favorite, affordable favorite is Bogle is the vineyard, and the name of the wine is Phantom.
Okay.
Like Phantom of the Opera. That's $20 bottle of wine, roughly, or less, depending on where you get it. And it's a blend, but it's exceptional for the price. And then there's none that I would say that are favorites, but you know, there's some really high-end bottles that I don't drink, but if I'm lucky, once every couple years. Joseph Phelps Insignia, which is really hard to find, but I can't afford it.
Yeah.
So I don't drink it much. Yep.
And have you always been a wine guy, or how did you get into it?
Kinda.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, you know, in college, you know, I might have had a little bit of beer, you know, and stuff like that, but then it just got to be more into appreciating wines, and especially red wines.
Okay.
So.
And do you have a favorite restaurant to go to in Frederick County?
I would have to say the Tasting Room is my favorite. I like Il Porto, Italian restaurant. And then I would have to say, I mean, there's a lot. We have a lot of options, a lot of good restaurants. Probably Dutch's Daughter.
Okay.
Yep.
And do you have a favorite food in general?
Favorite food in general, I would have to say it's a toss-up between a filet steak or crab cakes.
Okay.
Yep.
Surf and turf. And then I think the only other question I have for you, Michael, is if there were if there is anything on your bucket list that you have not fulfilled yet, but that you really want to fulfill.
There are a lot. I haven't done a lot on my bucket list.
Okay. Top three.
Top three. I guess I would like to play Pebble Beach.
Okay.
That's the golf related. That's one. I would like to travel more. I would like to see, you know, parts of. I would like to go to New Zealand, Australia. See, you know, I'm going to be on the other side of the world. And then I guess I really want to see the Grand Canyon. I've not seen the Grand Canyon. I know that's not a very high bucket list item, but to me, I think there are a lot of things in the United States that I haven't seen that can elevate themselves to bucket lists, but we take them for granted. And I've never seen the Grand Canyon. I've flown over it a couple times, but I wouldn't mind spending more time there.
Okay. And have you been outside the country?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, I've been to France and been to Italy and Spain.
Okay.
Yep.
Wow. Well, Michael, thank you very much for coming in and speaking with me today. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thanks for inviting me.
Of course.